In this video, we're going to learn how to handle files using PHP. First of all, we're going to learn how to open and close files, and then we're going to learn how to get the contents of files using the fread or file get contents function or the file function. And finally, we will see how we can change the contents of files using the fwrite or the file put contents function. Okay, so the file we're going to be playing with is going to be our text file, some text.txt. Okay, if you open this file using Control O, then it's going to open using the Notepad editor if you're Windows. Okay, so to open the file using brackets, you can click right and go to Open with, and you can select use brackets for that. Okay, but probably you don't have this at the beginning, so you just need to add a program. You go to where brackets is installed. Okay, for me it's in program files brackets, and you can see the application there. Just open it and give it a name, brackets. Okay, and then you can add it to the programs. Okay, so let's open this file using brackets, and now we can see we've got some content there. I'm just going to change the contents of this, or let's just leave it like that. So you've got 2 lines. Okay, this is new content, this is some other new content. Okay, or let's say this is some content, this is some other content, and let's save. Okay, let's go back to our file handling.php, and now we're going to start with fopen and fclose to open and close files. So we're going to write some PHP code. Let's have our PHP tag there. Okay, so first of all, before we open the file, we're going to open this file, this text file. We're going to check if the file exists. Okay, so we're going to say if file exists. Okay, then we are going to open the file. Okay, and otherwise we are just going to echo a paragraph saying that the file does not exist. So to check if the file exists, there is a function we can use for that. It's file underscore exists. Okay, so this function is going to take the file, okay, with the complete reference to the file, okay, or location, and then it's going to return a boolean, true if the file exists, false if it doesn't. Okay, so in our case the file is in the same workspace, so we're just going to write the name of our file, some text.txt. Okay, so if the file exists, we are going to open the file, and we are going to create a variable myFile, which is going to be of type resource. So this is a resource variable. Okay, so you remember when we covered the data types, you remember what a resource variable is. So it's a reference to a file in our case here. So, and then we are going to open the file using the function fopen. Okay, so if you want to check what the function is doing, you just do Control K, and you can see that's the file. The function is going to open a file or URL. Okay, and our variable there is going to be to have a reference to that file or URL. Okay, so it's going to take a couple of arguments. So the first one is going to be the file. So it's going to write the name of the file, since we are in the same workspace. And the second parameter is the permissions we want. And in our case, let's say we want only to read the file. Okay. So if you do Control K again, you'll see that the second parameter is the mode, and now we are in reading mode, R for reading. Okay, so, and then after that, we are just going to close the file. And to close the file, we are going to close the resource itself. Okay. Otherwise, we are going to echo a paragraph saying that the file does not exist. Okay, this file does not exist. So if we refresh the page, okay, we don't see anything there because we have opened and closed the file. But if we choose another file that doesn't exist, then we'll see that this file does not exist. Okay, now we're going to see how to read the file using the fread function. Let's have our PHP tag first. And now we're going to open our file and place the reference to the file inside a resource variable we're going to call file handle. Okay, so so inside this variable we're going to store the output of the function fopen. So we're going to open the file sometext.txt, and we're going to open the file in reading mode. Okay. So you will notice that we haven't checked if the file exists first, but what we're going to do, we're going to say open the file, and if it doesn't work, and we're going to use a function by, okay, which takes a string as a parameter, and we're going to place inside the string enable to open file. So what's happening here is we're going to try to open the file, and if something goes wrong or we can't open the file, then we're going to execute this function. Okay, this function is the equivalent of the exit function, which will just stop the whole script. Okay, so and then this is going to be displayed on our screen if we don't manage to open the file. Okay. Okay, so next we are going to create another variable we're going to call file content, which is going to store the content of the file. Okay, and to store the to get the contents of the file, we're going to use the function fread. All right, so let's click on Control K and see what this function is doing. So it's going to return the read string, okay, or false if there is a failure. So it's going to take a resource, okay. So we're going to give it file handle in the first parameter, and the second parameter is going to be the length. Okay, it's going to be an integer, and it's just going to be saying how many or the length in bytes. Okay, so let's place the arguments inside the fread function. So the first one is going to be our resource file handle. Okay. And the second parameter is going to be how many bytes we want to read. And if we want to read the whole file, we're just going to place the size of the file. And to get that, we're going to write file size. So this is a function that will take as a parameter the file location or file name. Okay. So this is going to be the total size of the file. And now we're going to read the whole file. Okay. And finally, we are going to close the file by closing the resource. Okay. All right. And let's see the contents of the file using the var dump function. So you're going to dump the variable file content. Okay. So if we save and refresh, we can see the content of our file. So the file content is a string of 49 characters, and we can see there the content of our file. Okay. So just notice that we have a line break in our file there, but it doesn't show in there. So it just returns the content as a full string. So you just replace the line break there with a space. Okay. So that's what the fread function is going to return if you use it. Okay. Okay, so now we're going to move to the function file get contents, which will also get contents of the file, but unlike the fread function, we are going to read the content of the file without having to open the file. Okay, so you're gonna go straight and use the function without opening the file, and also this function is going to read the whole content of our file. Okay, so let's write some PHP code under the header. So let's have our PHP tag first. Okay, and let's create a variable file content. Okay, we already have that variable from before, so we're just going to reset the value of the variable to file get contents. So we're using this function. Okay, so if you click on Control K, you can see that the function is going to read the entire file into a string. Okay, so it's going to take as a parameter the file name or the file path. So it's some text dot text. Okay, and if we can't read it, then we're going to say or die enable to read file, for example. Okay. All right, so let's have a line break, or we don't need a line break really. Let's just dump the variable and see what it's got. So our variable is file contents. Okay, and now if we save and refresh, we can see that it returned a string. Okay, and we can see here the whole content of our file as a string, just like the fread function. Okay, but again, the advantage is we didn't have to open the file. Okay, and also the function will get the whole contents of the file straight away, unlike the read function, which will take a couple of parameters, the file, the resource, okay, after opening the file, and the size that we want to read. Okay. Okay, now we're going to use another function to read the contents of our file. It's the file function. Okay, so let's try it and see what's the output is going to be. So let's have our PHP tag, and let's set the file contents variable to the outputs of this function file. Okay, so if you click on Control K, you can explore details about this function. So it says here, it says it reads entire file into an array. Okay, so unlike the file gets contents, which returned a string, this function is going to return an array. Okay, so each line of our file is going to be an element inside the array that's going to be returned by the file function. Okay, so let's try it and see. So the file function is going to take as parameter the name of the file or the path of the file. So some text.text, okay, and also you're going to say or die enable to read file, okay. All right, let's have a, okay, we don't need a line break there. Okay, let's dump the variable and see what it's got. Okay, if we save and refresh, so you can see that it returned an array. So we've got an array of 2 elements. So the first one is the first line, okay, and the second element is the second line, okay. So now if we want to process the file data after using a file function, then I would need to iterate over the array, and we're going to use the for each loop, okay. So let's do that. So we're going to use for each, okay, so it's a numeric array, all right. So we're just going to place the name of the array, which is file content, and as, let's name our variable line, because each element there is one line inside our file, okay. So as line, we are going to echo the line, okay, followed by a line break, okay. So if we try that and refresh, here we go. So you've got the first line and the second line. Let's have a line break just before. Otherwise, we can also just print line break followed by line rather than line followed by line break. It would work as well, exactly the same. Okay, so you can see there our elements. All right, so that's how we can use the file function, and that's what it returns for us. Okay.